fantastic legal contributors. Joining us now is the Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado. He's the chair of the House Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Congressman, good to see you again. I want to talk about a different topic with you, and that is this concept of, I don't know, expunging the impeachment of Donald Trump now becoming yet another priority. I mean, I'd like something on this this Republican to-do list to be something that feels like a policy priority, but this now seems to be a thing that's going around, a vote to unimpeach Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, it's good to be with you, Ali, and thanks for having me on. Look, I thought that the exchange that you played between the reporters posing the question to Speaker McCarthy was so instructive, because this notion that the House Republican Conference would focus its time, now that it is in the majority, on expunging and relitigating an impeachment proceeding from 4 years ago, I think is very revealing in terms of giving you a sense of the priorities of the House Republican Conference, which clearly do not comport with the values and the priorities of the American people. This is not a House conference that is prepared to govern in any serious way. And of course, any rational observer would have reached that conclusion in the opening days of the 118th Congress, watching the dysfunction on the other side during, as you know, the unprecedented 15 rounds of balloting during the Speaker's vote. So, look, I would implore my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the House Democrats are ready to govern. We'd like to focus on the issues that matter to the American people, fighting for lower costs, fighting to create better paying jobs, fighting to create safer communities. It is unfortunate that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would rather spend their time, again, as I said, relitigating impeachment proceedings of the past. And of course, as you've already articulated during the course of your program tonight, really putting us on the brink of economic catastrophe with respect to the debt ceiling and government shutdowns they threatened and so much more.
Can we just talk about that for a second? Because I find it difficult to believe that all that stuff I talked about with your colleague Lloyd Doggett at the top of the show is true. And I don't understand. I'm really struggling to understand. Is it folks who don't understand the consequences of not raising the debt ceiling? Or does this Chaos Caucus just do its own thing? Is it we're going to burn the House down even if we're in the House while it burns down?
I think ultimately what you are seeing, Ali, is the reality of a speaker in Speaker McCarthy who capitulated to every demand made by the chaos, sort of extreme right wing of his caucus. And of course, we knew some of the demands that he had given into during the course of those early days of the opening days of the Congress, but the full scope of the promises that he made were unclear. You know, these sort of late night backroom deals that he had struck with members of his caucus. We are now learning more. The folly of the supposed debt prioritization plan that you talked about earlier in the program. And of course, my colleague, Representative Doggett on the Ways and Means Committee, articulated well the real consequences that it would pose for the American people and just the economic crisis that it could precipitate were the House Republican Conference able to ultimately achieve, apparently, their stated goals. So this is very serious. It has serious ramifications for the American economy and for the American people. And obviously, House Democrats, as we have always done in the past, will step forward and try to work with our colleagues in a responsible way to do what is necessary for the safety and the security of the country.
What might be necessary? 6 Republicans voting with you. Is that a possibility?
I certainly think that that's a possibility. Ultimately, the strategies that we pursue within the House Democratic Caucus will be determined by our very talented leadership in Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries and the entire leadership team, the committees of jurisdiction, Ways and Means, Budget, and so forth. But I will say that we will look to our colleagues, the reasonable colleagues on the other side of the aisle, with the hope that they would step forward and work with us in a bipartisan way. Just for the record, Ali, I know you know this, but for the benefit of your viewers, the debt ceiling was increased 3 times during the Trump administration on a bipartisan basis, including when Republicans had a majority in the House and in the Senate. So we've been here before. We know that the most prudent thing to do is for the United States government to pay its bills, to increase the debt ceiling as necessary so that we can ensure that we continue to pursue the goals that I think the American people share with us in Washington.
Congressman, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining me again. Joe Neguse is a congressman from Colorado, a Democratic congressman from Colorado. Coming up.